Hello, everyone, and welcome to another bloody episode of Lodgecast. Somehow, still here, still on air, so gassed. And today, well, it's a bit of a mix-up because it's not one story, it's not two stories, it's a bunch because we're tackling. I think this is our first anthology, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And notice how when we say the word anthology, there is a noticeable dip in enthusiasm because
Yeah.
Warhammer anthologies are very hit and miss.
There's a few good
And
ones
it's
in
kind
this,
of
though.
there's always like bright spots in an anthology for the Horus Heresy, but there's so many of them. And at a certain point, it feels, especially near the end, it feels a bit like padding, where it's like we can get another anthology out to like tide people over. But this one's an interesting one because it is the first. It does have some cool ideas here and there. We
Yeah, I
should
like it.
mention, I think that also we're not going to go into depth in all the stories. We're going to glance through a few of them to start with, just because we don't. I mean, I've reread through all of them, and some of these you do not need to read. Some of these are really inconsequential, and that's kind of the problem with anthologies. It's just like, here's a short story. Nobody cares. It doesn't do anything with the entire setting. Cool. Or very little.
Luckily, Lodgecast is here to do our job. We're here to give you guys the best bits of the Horus Heresy. Of course, if you ain't got time, we're here for you. Obviously, it's a podcast format, so if you guys, we can't give you every detail, but we're trying our best to give you kind of like the best bits and the bits that we enjoy / in our own, stupid way. But we appreciate that. Well, at least there's a few good ones in here, some quite thought-provoking ones, and ones that are full of rage and hate. I'm excited. Should we go straight into it, Andy?
Okay, well, to start off with, let's go through, I think, the weakest of the bunch, which is Call of the Lion. Guess what this one's about? So there's a Dark Angels battle barge called the Spear of Truth. It's located a human settlement within the DX619 system on a world called Byzanthis, which is divided into 6 nation states. The main conflict is you have Chapter Commander Meria Astalan, who's a Terran, and he is given reinforcements sent by the Lion from a guy called Belaf, who's probably the first Raven Wing commander, and he's from Caliban. And the whole story is about the friction between the Terrans and the Calibanites, kind of foreshadowing the kind of Dark Angels infighting that's to come. And Astalan's been around 4 years, doing lots of compliances. His ship fleet is about 7 battle barges, 3 fleet carriers, and 8 light cruisers. They need resupply, so they kind of take any help they can get. The Raven Wing are here. Cool, let's bring compliance to this world. Astalan drops in to do a reconnaissance mission, which goes horribly wrong. He stumbles into a military base of all things. So then a couple of Astartes aren't going to destroy an entire military base, no matter how strong they are. So they withdraw. Astalan goes, oh, we've been contacted by the planet's Committee of Nations. We should sort out a peace, because even though I'm a warrior, I believe peaceful solutions are important. Balaf is like, nah, we should just kill them all. I'm an evil Calibanite, don't you know? Oh, look at me. He basically calls Astalan a coward and suggests they just attack all the nations at once and kill them all. But after 2 days of delegation, Astalan is starting to make some headway. He's talking to one of the elders of the nations to try and get a peace going on. He's unarmed. He's got one friend with him. And then all of a sudden, one of his meetings is interrupted by Belaf's ships in orbit, basically teleporting Terminators in and massacring the entire leadership of the planet in one fell swoop. And then Astalan's like, I hate you. What are you doing? And he's like, look, this is obviously the right call. We've killed all of their leadership in one go. They're going to be in disarray, and now they'll be really easy to just crush and bring to compliance. And then they both disagree with who the Lion's going to side with, because Astalan's like, no, we can't just use a hammer for every situation. And Belaf's like, nah, mate, I'm a Calibanite. I'm a true Dark Angel. You're not. You're just like an old relic, and you're stupid. That's Call of the Lion. It's kind of like one note. Doesn't really do much for the Dark Angels, I've got to be honest. It's not fleshed out enough to be important. It's there.
It is interesting because we will revisit Astalan a bit more in some of the future stories, particularly in some of the 40k stuff as well, actually. If we ever get ready, if Lodgecast ever goddamn continues to the level of we finally reached the 41st or 42nd millennium. But it is I do find it slightly interesting, which is obviously Astalan coming from Terra. He's seen the Emperor make peace with nations and other things. Like he brings them into the fold. So I assume that's maybe where the attitude comes from, because Aslan, I mean, not to spoil future stuff, but he has fought beside the Emperor, like
Yeah.
literally in the same battles. So Aslan's probably thinking, I saw the Emperor bring people into compliance in more than one way. You know, he tried other things, whereas, you know, the Calibanites, you kill the beasts of Caliban, which we talked about in a previous episode, which we had with Sam Manotera. Check out that one out, which is Descent of Angels. But yeah, like the attitude is very much what will be a problem. And I guess we'll see even more problems for the Dark Angels, for those who are not in favor with the Lion in the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Second one I want to talk about is Wolf at the Door. Guess which one this is about. 13th Great Company of the Space Wolves, led by Bulvi Greybeard, who's in a bunch of, like, this guy's even in the Ragnar Blackmane books. So he's like a very long-winded character, and he's in a lot of stuff. But he just finished crushing the rebellion on Cernunnos. Fun name for a planet.
Nailed it.
Yep. Cernunnos. Cernunnu. And basically they are still roaming around the galaxy. They're not rendezvousing with the wider Legion because they still have work to do. And they find this world called Antimon. They deploy alongside their mortal auxilia, which is the Arcturan Dragoons. They find that the populace is hostile to the Imperium, and Bulvi manages to ally with the son of the governor, Andras, and the planet is routinely targeted by the Dark Eldar, kind of like Vulcan's homeworld, which is Nocturne, and this is the Cabal of the Shrieking Heart. Basically, the Space Wolves enacted a guerrilla warfare against the Drukhari. Their fleet is pretty battered in orbit, so they don't have the same reinforcements they'd usually have. Bulvi confronts the Archon in the towers of Antimon with a group of liberated prisoners and Andras's men. And then eventually Space Wolves reinforcements arrive in orbit to aid their plight and drive back the Drukhari. And the short story ends with Andras, regardless of his allegiance to Bulvi and the camaraderie they've bolstered, says, "Hey, thanks so much for the help, but we're not going to comply with the Imperium. We want to remain independent." And Bulvi goes, "Nah," kills him and orders his people to bombard the planet. Like, oh, okay. That's Wolf at the Door, folks.
Yeah, again, we'll say we are heavily shifting a lot of the love of this episode towards the later stories, because some of them are really, like, they do. We enjoy these ones a lot more. We will say, so do stick around.
Yeah, there's more nuance. Yeah,
but I say also I like a quick fact, which is about the 13th company in the Space Wars, because we will know at some point they will be lost to time. It's not really a spoiler necessarily for 40k stuff, because that's like an ongoing plot, but they are, I will say, they're filled with a lot of the veterans who knew Lehman Russ when he was like, he wasn't even a Primarch to them. He was just like this really big dude. So they are an interesting company, and we will, in our next episode, we'll get to explore them quite a bit more, actually, because we've got some cool stuff for that one.
We're halfway through the inconsequential book, short stories now, 2 to go. Next one is Scions of the Storm. It's about the word bearers. You got Corthaeron, the first cardinal, adoptive father of Lorgar, and Sor Talgron, who's from the 34th Company. They arrive at a planet called 4716 aboard the Fidelitas Lex. Lorgar has been sealed within his chambers for a month, basically whipping himself or something. He's conducting penance for his rebuke for slow compliances by the Emperor.
This is post-Monarchia, I take it then, isn't it? So...
Well, that's the thing. I don't know exactly where this is in the timeline, but I'm pretty sure it is after Monarchia, after the pilgrimage, etc. And basically the Emperor is still like, even though the word bearers are still like, oh, we're pretending to be loyal. They're getting at the end of their deception. And Erebus brings word that the Emperor is displeased with the compliance of this world 4716, so they must hasten the campaign. Sor Talgron leads basically a strike team.
Maybe it's before the Monarchia, because if they're getting told that they're being slow.
Well, I'll mention it at the end, because there is like a bit at the end, which I think cements where this is a bit more.
It's been a hot minute since I've read this one, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I've read a lot of the other more recently.
Yeah. But either way, they declare war on the populace for being heretics. They're praising something. We're not sure what. and they're using AI incorporated war machines with lightning weapons to combat the Astartes. So they're no slouches. But Talgron manages to infiltrate the capital, which has this big shield array around it. So only him and a couple of men sneak through. They kind of make a hole in the barrier briefly, and they get their way through it. And they discover, oh, what's this big statue in the middle? Oh, it's the Emperor. Oh, they're worshipping the Emperor. Isn't that a novel idea? And bear in mind, Saw Talgron doesn't know about any chaos shenanigans yet in the story. So he meets with like an elder. They show them the holy book they've been using as like a reference. And he's like, oh, hang on a minute. That's the Lectitio Divinitatis, isn't it? That's my Primarch's book. Oh, we've made a huge mistake. All right. Cult leader of the Scion of the Storm is like, hey, we want peace with with your men. We want to praise the Emperor. Please stop killing us. Just saw Talgron's on his communicator instantly. He's like, lower the shield. I'll tell my men. Like, stop shooting, stop shooting. No, no, no. We made a mistake. We made a mistake. And then the Legion descend, and Lorgar actually has come out of his stewing in his cell with Erebus in tow, and they arrive on the surface and decide to just slaughter the populace anyway. Not at all subtly, Erebus kills the elderly man and then starts painting an 8-pointed star on his forehead with blood. Lorgar is like, hey, this is on the Emperor's hands. This is blood on his hands. But don't worry, that previous book, the Lectitio I wrote, that book was nothing. I'm writing something new called the Book of Lorgar. Talgron, are you loyal? Are you a good boy? I think you should read my new book. And it's like, okay, he's writing the Book of Lorgar. He's fully in the chaos source. So I think it is post pilgrimage, because it's like, surely he's done the pilgrimage.
Oh, because of the interviews with Argel Tal helps him. I believe if you want to check out the first Heretic episode we did discuss previous parts in that, where he poor Lorgar's journey. Although he does have a audio drama, I think, as well, which is Aurelian, which does explain his own pilgrimage, not just his legions. But that is a story for another day, to be fair.
Yeah. And then the last story to talk about is a Sister of Silence one, which is a shame because I wish there was more of their lore, but this isn't a great showing. Sister Leilani Molitas. She's a kind of aspirant of the order. She hasn't taken her oath yet, so she can speak freely. She's with Amandera Kendall. If you remember Amandera, she was in Flight of the Eisenstein. She's one of the free agents of the Sigillites. She's, I think, Agent Secundus. And because she's serving Malcador, she's allowed to speak freely. She issued her oath of tranquility. So she's like the only sister who's allowed to speak freely, who is a like card carrying sister. Yeah, a card carrying Null Maiden. And this is post Istvan 3. They're aboard a ship called the Area Gloris. And just in the background, just so you know, the Lectitio Divinitatis is on the rise in popularity. It's post Garrow, it's post Horus Heresy. We know that Horus is a traitor, etc. So they've been sent to find this disappeared black ship called the Validus. They meet with an Oblivion Knight of the White Talons called Emrilia Harkaze. And she basically says, oh, the Psychers are running loose in the ship, but there aren't otherwise any servitors, are all dead. But there should be fail safes in the ship to kill the tithe in case they ever escape. Usually they have like virus bombs inside the ship that detonate and kill everyone aboard if there's a breach in containment. But they basically find out once they board, like, oh, the Psychers are forming a shared consciousness, a gestalt between them. And so they go, okay, we'll teleport aboard. The crew that are alive that aren't the Psychers are in a kind of catatonic state. The rest are all dead. Like all the servitors are dead. And they try to communicate with the consciousness. It warns of an impending threat that will dwarf even the Age of Darkness. Like, there's a really bad era of humanity coming up. You need to listen to us. I wonder what that could be. But basically, the initiate Molitas, she basically kind of sells her own soul to join to be the speaker or figurehead of this Gestalt consciousness, because she wants to protect humanity.
We should say as well, like, before the immediate comment section explodes, this is in with like, do blanks have souls in some sense? This is like, we'd have to double check some stuff, because it may not be like blanks have no soul, but in a sense of like their soul is in a sense null, or like it
Yeah.
creates this anti-warp aura. I have to double check because it's a bit of a, like, if I read things in like the Eisenhorn novels or other things, it could be a bit confusing because I think some things, maybe even like in the old Dawn of War back in the day, if you remember, which is not canon, but other things implied it's like their soul is like negative, like a
Yeah.
magnet. Some things, most people are positive, there are some negative ions, or other things say they don't have a soul, that's why they're a blank. But we're not 100% sure. But when we're
Or
saying when we're saying
yeah.
sell her soul, we don't mean it in
Yeah,
like
yeah.
literal currency.
Yeah. It's she gives herself to the collective to basically be
Yeah.
like, I want to save humanity. But then Hikazi's like, that's heresy, kills her, kills the collective. And as the Gestalt dies, the ship tears apart. Amandera's made unconscious during the fray. She wakes up in like an Arthesia tank, so she's in like like Luke Skywalker in Empire Strike Back. He's in that like tank of fluids where he's like, "Oh, I'm
Back to
better now."
fluids.
Yeah, back to fluid kind of thing. And she speaks with Hikaze, and she's speaking to her about Fort Sign. And she's like, "Hang on a minute, you took the oath of tranquility. You're not allowed to do that. That's heresy." And Hikaze's like, "No one will believe you. Like, she's like, I just need you to know as well that I did the right thing. We had to kill her. This is just hearsay from some kind of entity we don't understand. Also, I'm an adherent of the Lictitio Divinitatis. I think the God Emperor wants this age of peril and darkness to unfold, so we shouldn't interfere with his plans." And Kendall's like, "Hey, what do you mean you think the Emperor's a god? Like, this is novel at the time. Like, in the 41st millennium, the Sisters of Silence are like full in the Emperor is a god." And they are segmented and exiled, and all sorts happens to them in the 41st millennium. But this is like the first out and out Sister of Silence who believes he's a deity. And it basically ends with like the champion of the God Emperor and the champion of the Sigillite having a disagreement about where the future of their order should go, and also how they should interpret the Emperor. So again, I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit of a wet fart. It's like, it could have been great if it was fleshed out a bit more, but as it stands, again, it's just like, and this is a James Swallow one, so I would have been like the first one to say it's amazing, but it's okay, it's fine.
It's a common theme of like Amandera Kendall's an interesting character that we meet and then is completely underutilized throughout most of the Horus Heresy.
and then it's relegated to short hell. Like, yay, she's in short stories, and that's about it.
So I do find it interesting because obviously, like, even from the Sisters of Silence perspective, when they see the Emperor, they're not blown away by like his psychic might, like in the Korax, when Korax first met the Emperor, the men around him literally like fall to their knees and weep, saying he's the most beautiful, perfect human I've ever seen. And yet, obviously, to them, this effect doesn't happen because they are nulls. They are basically blanks. So it's interesting. Like, again, like, I think even when in the 40k stuff, Gilliman is like, how is it possible you guys worship the Emperor? Like, how is, like, surely, because they just see him as a man. I think I may have to be double checked on that. People were in the comments, please do write if you do know, which is, I think they just see him as like a dude. They don't necessarily see like all the crazy, like, roaring furnace of power that he is.
I think there is also an element of like cope with them where they're like, we're sacrificing so many people to him every day. It's got to be something a bit more special than just a guy, surely. Like, if we're doing all this,
they're not even doing that yet as well, which is interesting because the black ships exist, but there's no Emperor on the throne yet.
Yeah.
So, they're just capturing psychers who are basically dangers to society, essentially. They're not going to be fuel yet, but, interesting that one of them says, maybe the heresy should happen because then that creates the God Emperor,
like, this is all part of his plan. This is what he wants to he knows about this. It's supposed to happen. Don't interfere with the plan of the big guy in the sky. It's like, oh, okay, this one's crazy, thinks Amandera. But she's also like, hey, look, if you tell people that I spoke to you about using Fort Sign, they won't believe you, because then I'll be in Holy Terror just like gesturing rapidly like, this is a lie, I always use Fort Sign. Like, oh,
you can't read their minds either, so
yeah, true. And yeah, so that was the kind of the meh short stories done. Now we have 3 more, and they're going to be a lot more fleshed out, and we're going to start off with the Blood Games. And this one centers around a quite robust character in that he's one of the custodians, and he's like one of the few that returns, and I think the only one who bridges the gap between 30k and 40k, because
Oh, there's a
he's
hint. There's a hint that he may
yeah.
be one of the current custodians alongside Saint Celestine, is it?
Well, twice. He's theoretically in the War of the Beast, and he's also in the story, yeah, with Saint Celestine, Greyfax, and Marshal Godshelm, who's like one of the Black Templars in the Our Martyred Lady audiobook. It's an
We've
audio
read it.
drama, very
We've
good.
read way too many of these
Yeah.
Warhammer books. Oh my god.
But yeah, and it's like it's and we'll explain why in a bit later. But
We do
Amon
love that.
Toramakian, not to be confused with Ammon from the Thousand Sons, completely different character. He's stalking through the hives of terror in efforts to infiltrate the Imperial Palace. He's been at it for 10 months or more, lots of planning. He's had 18 false identities, and he's conducting a blood game. And it's basically in attempts to find flaws in the Emperor's defenses. There's always 6 of them going on concurrently, and they can last for weeks, months, if not years, until either they are found or they succeed. So what is a blood game in more detail, Hal?
Yeah, because the essence of a blood game, which is run by the Custodes, is they are trying to kill the Emperor. Now, you may be thinking that sounds a bit crazy, but it's to essentially test as Andy said, they test the Imperial Palace's defenses, because obviously the Custodes are built to essentially guard the Emperor. And what's the best way to guard him is to essentially figure out how an enemy would try to assassinate the Emperor of Mankind. We should say there's slight spoilers for it's in the Alfarius Primarch book, if I remember correctly, which is it originally spawned from when, again, heavy spoilers I'm about to say here, to let you guys all know, the first Primarch found, which is Alfarius, technically, allegedly, though hidden and not told of the, not exactly celebrated as the first Primarch found. He had initially done a mission where he basically did the same thing. He did a blood game where he attempted to assassinate the Emperor. He did actually kill a Custodes, I believe, and then just shoved him in a barrel. Allegedly shoved him in a barrel. And he would end up fighting like Valdor at one point. And then the Emperor, like when this happened, the assassination attempt, it was obviously playing out. The Emperor approved of it because he was like, he understood what Alfarius was doing. And supposedly this would go on to inspire the Custodes to do similar things, which is to test the defenses, because Alfarius got pretty close and he would have had a kill shot.
Allegedly.
He hacked some turrets, didn't he, or something, and then he was actually a distraction. But blood games would begin in the sort of Great Crusade / and then obviously the Horus Heresy was a real blood game. So
yeah, and it's worth pointing out that they do at this point in time know about Horus's betrayal. So they are also kind of ramping up. We need to be like really careful, especially now.
They continue to do it even to the 42nd millennium. They even capture aliens, traitorous Astarte. They let people loose in the Imperial Palace to see how they would do it, essentially. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and so Ammon he's been pretty good at it. He's currently, I think, the one who has been gone the longest and not been caught. And they're like, "Where is Ammon? He's been out there for a long time. We should have caught him by now. He must be making his
sneaky
push.
Boy,
sneaky boy." And bear in mind, like he's not got his armor, he's not got his guardian spear. He has to improvise everything from scratch. And so what he decides is, I'm going to hide within this like hoist crane delivery system. And while it's transporting goods to the palace, I'm going to ingest this drug called Kush. And it basically puts him in a state of near death where his heart rate is barely there. If you were an onlooker, you would say, oh, this is a dead man, because his body is completely shut down. And he uses this to get past the biometric scanners because he knows they're in the palace. And then once he's through the threshold, his body like purges the poison in his system. Somehow he just kind of like has that he's built different. It's like Custodes mechanisms where he's just like enact purge, and his body does what he kind of wills it to do, and it gets rid of the toxin. And for the next 3 days, Ammon is blending with the Masonic laborers. He's using it, and people would say, like, how do you hide a custodian? They're like 12 feet tall Goliaths. Well, it's a mixture of both a disguise of like rags, but also a displacer field. So it makes him look a bit smaller. He intentionally hunches over, so he looks a bit crooked. So between the displacer field and like his disguise, he looks smaller in stature. He doesn't look intimidating. There's like a little bit of trickery with technology and just ingenuity of like his disguise. And eventually he manages to get to the palace itself. And to give you an idea of the security, there are already 2 custodians patrolling the Southern Circuit, 2 at the Jade Bailey, 3 at the Congressional, 1 at the Kraken Oasis, and 4 at the Taxonomic Towers. So you've got 4, 7, 8, 10. So it's like 12 in view. And that's not explaining custodians that might be hiding in the shadows. So Ammon's like, right, I've got to get through like 12 custodians, no problem. Manages to find a weakness in the patrols. He reaches the Emperor's location, which is in the Hall of Leng, and attempts to kill him. He has a punch dagger, and it's like coated in venom and kush resin, so that hopefully if he gets a strike in, even if it's a glancing one, it'll incapacitate him. And the moment he's about to stab the Emperor with this attack, a swordsman out of nowhere blocks his attack, and they start to have a fight. They start to brawl, and eventually about 5 custodians turn up, and they seize Ammon, they capture him, they put him in a cell. And then Constantine Valdor arrives and says, congratulations, brother. That was a really good blood game. You've come closer to anyone from succeeding. You were that close to killing the Emperor. But he says, but bear in mind, the Emperor knew you were in the room as soon as you entered. He knew he was not in any danger. You wouldn't have hurt him. But if we ignore that, because it is the Emperor, he is built different. If you ignore that, you would have been like, you would have done it. And the swordsman was more of a formality to just like block the shot, so the Emperor didn't have to lift a finger from the book he was reading. And so Ammon is then given a new title, and basically all custodians have names or elements as they're known, and each symbolizes a different part of their journey as a custodian. So Ammon is, I know the Emperor says about how he names all of his custodians after like mythological figures and gods. Like you got Ra, you've got Ammon, you've got Diocletian, you've got all these like lofty titles. So that's their first name. But he's known as Ammon Toramachian, which is his bloodline, Jagazi, which is his birthplace, Lepron, which is his study house, Cairn Hedrosa, which is his weapons tutoring, Pyrope, which is his first live combat scenario location, and now Leng, because of the blood game in the Hall of Leng. So now Leng is added to his name. And in between there's about 10 other names that in the book, it mentions there's 10 other or so names that he's earned, but we don't know what they are. So it's like, he's got a big name now. It's like 20 words long.
I wonder, because obviously they have this inscribed in the inside of their armors, don't they, to make them all like unique.
Yeah.
At some point, do they ever just go like, I'm running out of space, bro?
Yeah. Well, the one who would know would be Valdor himself. He has 1,932 names in his armor. It's like, what, they must be crammed in pretty tight, teeny tiny handwriting. But for those who don't know, Hal, who is Constantine Valdor? What's so special about him?
Yeah, because we did do an episode on Valdor, Birth of the Imperium, if people want extra context for custodians and Valdor himself. But he is obviously, I believe he is the first. He is the chief custodian, Mr. basically in charge of all the golden boys himself. He is the Emperor's favorite child, essentially, other than the Primarchs. And Valdor's is a very impressive figure. And I mean, to be fair, yeah, we'll save most of that for the Valdor episode, because he really needs like a long amount of time to explain who he is. But essentially, he is Ammon's boss, or Ammon's boss. And Valdor, again, they are all weapons of the Emperor. They're extensions of him in some sense. But Valdor, again, in his origins are still mysterious even to this day. It's who knows where he really came from. But cool character.
Yeah. And he's finally got a CGI version of him in the Horus Heresy trailer. You're like, that's cool. Yeah, and so basically, Ammon has succeeded as best he could. He's done better than any other custodian ever, as far as we know. Like, well done, Ammon. Here's your name. Let's get you back in that suit of armor you love. So Dawn at this time is preparing the Imperial Palace for war. He knows the traitors are coming. So Ammon has been out of the loop for 10 months. He's putting his armor back on. He's got his guardian spear. He's like, oh, I feel a bit rusty, but I am a custodian, so the rust is very minimal. And he's looking at the palace with Valdor and being like, wow, a lot of the opulence we had is now being replaced with kind of brutalist, just robust fortress walls and gun batteries. It's transforming less of a spectacle and more as a just
fortress.
Just a fortress, a big old fortress. And he then goes to the Tower of Hegemon, where the Custodian Command meets, and Custodian High Command assess threats to the Emperor and the Imperium minute by minute. So, like, I'm pretty sure it's every minute or so they decide what's the pressing threat of the day, what's the pressing threat of the day. And they're like, billions and billions of threats are coming in, and there are like scribes and people deciphering it, and the custodians are poring over data and going, you go there, you go there, you go there, because there's always threats to the Imperium. And Ammon is given the task to investigate the most pressing one of the moment, which is Lord Ferom Sykar, or Sikar of High Brazil. He is very powerful. He has ties to the Navis nobility. He runs a trade empire, and he's like top 50 feudal lords of terror. If he wasn't denied status as a High Lord by Malcador, he'd be a shoo-in. And doubtless, if ever a seat presents itself, he's going to be top pick to get the seat. But the custodians think he is a threat because intel suggests that he's allied to Horus and is a danger to the continent of High Brazil if ever he shows his cards and is indeed a traitor.
I think even because at this point, the High Lords are not the High Lords we know in 40k. We did, again, even in the Valdor episode, we explained them a little bit, but the High Lords kind of at this point just do the Emperor and Malcador's will. They're kind of overshadowed a lot. They're more administrators, but it is still a very, very powerful position on Terra because the High Lords can really, as we've seen in some other scouring stuff, if it's the guy who's in charge of logistics, you can really screw up an entire empire if he's not doing his job correctly or his loyalty is elsewhere.
Much later, Watchers of the Throne is all about the custodians.
So good that
trying to thwart the High Lords plotting, and it's like that's a good duology. So yeah, Ammon is assigned to this mission. He assumes the title of Elod Galt, puts on a disguise. He is accompanied by custodian Hado Emankon, and they make their way to High Brazil. They meet with Sykar's fourth brother Tolom, and his retinue of Dracos veterans and a Lucifer Black bodyguard called Ibn Norn. And Norn knows that Ammon is using a displacer field. He can just tell. Again, Lucifer Blacks, they're built different. They're kind of like the best mortal warriors you can get.
We saw a little bit of them in the Legion episode, didn't we?
Yeah, and they're like the pinnacle of mortal military prowess. So much so that they still are a token force that protects the Imperial Palace, even in the 40 foot. Like, not so much, but like at the end of the Horus Heresy, they're still kind of there, and they're very well respected. So he knows that there's this displacer field. He knows that Ammon isn't who he says he is, but he doesn't reveal that to Tolom. But okay. And as they're discussing things, they're interrupted with a data breach, which forces the custodians to go back to their quarters. And again, they're still in disguises. And so they go, okay, now is the time to act. They throw off their disguises. They like Batman drop like their armor suits and spears in, like, the like Batman Arkham City game, where it's like you go on the top of the building and then there's this big tube descends from the skies and it's full of the Batman armor. They do that, but it's more gold and stuff. And they put their weapons, they grab their weapons, put their armor on, and then Ammon and Hado manage to get to Sykar's archives. They find binaric codes, which have 4 of them have receptive codes tied to the Vengeful Spirit, which is the flagship of Horus. So they go, right, slam dunk. He's definitely a traitor. He's been communicating with the Vengeful Spirit. We've got him dead to rights. So the custodians go to Parliament House. Ammon declares him an enemy of terror. Big teleport flare blocks their path, and in strolls Rogel Dawn and a bunch of Imperial fists.
Uh-oh.
And they're like, oh, what's going on here? And he's all like, you need to stand down. And Ammon's like, no, I can't do that. He's a traitor. And he's like, no, you don't understand. He's working for me. Sykar is a triple agent. He's pretending to be a traitor to feed me information about what Horus is doing. And he's like, now that he's rumbled, we can't use him anymore because likely Horus now knows that he's a triple agent. Thanks very much for that. And after this, they're like, oh, we kind of messed up, didn't we? An assassin uses a bomb to blow up Sycar. He's dressed as a Lucifer Black. So I was like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, not that good then, are they?
No. So 8 of Sycar's men die. He dies. Horus's agent has washed hands of this vulnerability in their war effort. But as he flees aboard a speeder rigged with explosives, Ammon gives chase. And a chase ensues. Ammon manages to kill the assassin, but the explosives on the speeder are enough to completely ruin Hyperzil if it detonates. So he manages to basically key in a teleport signature to teleport the speeder like 2 kilometers in the air. Blows up in the skyline. Big explosion. No deaths from the explosion. All good. Many losses of lives prevented. Ammon's mission is complete. He's injured, but he's done his duty. And that's the Blood Games. It kind of goes in a few different directions. I like how there's a bit more. We often don't see we don't often see like the more behind the scenes stuff when it's not Malkador, and it's nice to see that Rogel Dawn is keyed into the fact that he's also establishing ways of undermining the traitors through more subtle methods than just shoot them with a bolt gun, which is nice. And yeah, it's like the first bit is like the Blood Game itself. The second bit is the Hyperzil storyline. I think it's all right. It's pretty good fun.
Yeah, because I mean, at this point, from the perspective of Terra, because as much like the Horus Heresy rages on for like nearly a decade, it's not, they don't really see it. It's all like a kind of a cold war for them. It's all in the outer galaxy. It's only when the Siege of Terra happens that people go, oh, it's real. He's here. Horus is here.
Yeah.
But because I think at some point, even though like there is other subplots of like word bearer shenanigans going on Terra itself, and then there's other things about, we'll see when we eventually get to like Nemesis, the book with, you know, focus on the Assassinorum and other parts. It is, again, like most of that, Horus and Dawn are not stupid, which is good to see. Like, and they understand, like, you know, information is a just as valuable weapon as any other, you know, bolt round. So, you know, I think it's good, and I do like the character of Ammon. He's an interesting Custodes.
Yeah,
lots of love in the Siege of Terra as well.
And it's very heavily implied that he's also the character called Longinus, who is he's the one who is present during the establishment of the Sisters of Battle, during the whole Goj Vandire arc, where, you know, he's trying to usurp the High Lords of Terra, make himself the most powerful man in the Imperium. Longinus steps in. He basically witnesses the death of Goj and Alicia Dominica becoming the first like abbess, abbess, saint, etc. But also he's present in the 42nd millennium when, again, Inquisitor Greyfax, Celestine, and the Black Templars go to San Lior, which is the pilgrimage site where the last abbess of the Sisters of Battle went to. She got trapped there for a century. They find her. They find a plot to corrupt the ecclesiarchy with Sinch, and he's present for all of that. You know, he kills Celestine in that book. It's kind of fun, and then she comes back to life. It's like, yeah, oh, that's probably Ammon again. He's there for a long time. He's like the only tether between Custodes in 30k and 40k.
I say, before people again jump in, I do know Euphrates Tequila is technically the first Imperial saint, but is it Malkador who gives him the name? I think Malkador gives him that name, which then is like an indicator that he was there during. That's the through line, because again, it's like he calls himself Longinus in the 41st millennium. Like, I know another guy called. And it's also weird. Amon? It's so weird. Why is he not Amon in 40k?
Well, I guess maybe because they were just like, we want to have a bit more mystery to him. I don't know. He doesn't take his.
I do enjoy the mysteries in Warhammer. To be fair, do like a good mystery.
And yeah, so that's Blood Games. That's a good fun little action packed with a little bit of stealth and spying and all sorts of political intrigue. The next one is a completely different story. It's called After Deshea. And this book gets straight into it. It all happens basically in a single room. And we start the story with Khan of the 8th Company, is within the Conqueror flagship of the Warhounds. and he is at this moment in time, he's the last he's the most high-ranking captain of his legion, because every other captain above him has just gone and met their Primarch for the first time, Angron, and been bludgeoned to death. That's where we're beginning this story. But before we do, you might notice I didn't say World Eaters, I said Warhounds. What am a Warhound?
Oh yeah, because it's been a hot minute since I had read some of these short stories, but after Deshaya's one, I have read more recently because I love this one quite a lot. It's so good. The Warhounds at this point, they're the 12th Legion, and they haven't had a Primarch for ages. They kind of do have they are known for having a brutal reputation at this point. A lot of them, the recruits, aren't even necessarily trained on Terra. I mean, even Khan's character, Khan is from Terra, I think, or he's maybe not from Terra, but like the world he learns to be an Astartes on is not even on Terra, because they understand like the Warhounds are kind of like a weird mix of like every culture in the galaxy like smashed together. They have their own language. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of. Is it Nagrokali? Nagrokali, I think the name of the legions. Like they're their own weird butchered language because again they make their own kind of culture. Kind of reminds me of good old Caesar's Legion in New Vegas, where they basically go like, we're remaking a Roman style gladiator, legion, whatever it is, and you're basically just dressed up as them. The Warhounds, obviously, like for them, it's been their Primarch is found. It's a glorious day. The Emperor has found another son. He's teleported onto their ship, their flagship, and every Legion master, every sort of senior captain who's gone in has basically been, as soon as they tried to speak, Angron, who is an enraged arsehole, has beaten them to death and the room is covered in blood. It's not good.
And it's worth remembering the only Primarchs found after Angron were Corvus Corex and Omegon. So like he's last few. His legion are predominantly Terrans at this point. But one of the things about the World Eaters is they recruited from all over the place because they were like, we'll just take what we can get. So they are unified in Terran traditions, very loyal to the Emperor. And Greer, who is the original chapter master or legion master, just went in and was like, hi, Dad, dead. First captain, dead. Second captain, dead. It's like, oh dear, they're all dying.
Well, do you have the names of them, don't you? I think, well, because
yes.
Legion Master Lork, who we do meet as a dreadnought later on, he's in a dreadnought at the moment.
Yeah, he was Legion Master, but now he's having a nap. But yeah, so basically for a long time they've been a bit out of sorts because they haven't got a Primarch, and that's like Khan refers to it as their alpha. And he's looked on at campaigns when he's fought with the Salamanders and the Iron Warriors, and he's like, when they had Vulcan, when they had Perturabo, they were like complete. They actually had like a proper purpose, and they were a true legion. We've been, Greer has done a pretty good job, but now him, Kunar, Hyazin, Anches, Vanch, and Shinagan are all dead. And those are the guys ahead of him. And he's like, right, guess it's my turn to try and see if I can speak to the Primarch. He, against the advisements of some of his men, he walks in. He's immediately ambushed by Angron, who starts beating him up. And Angron keeps demanding, like, hey, fight me. But Khan says, look, I serve you. I serve the master of mankind unreservedly. Neither myself nor anyone in the Legion will ever raise a hand at you. And Angron is confused because he's like, hang on, you're supposed to be a warrior. Why don't you fight? What kind of warrior doesn't fight? And, he's angry that Khan looks around the chamber. He smiles when he sees the dead bodies of his kindred because he's like, they died with honor. And Angron doesn't understand this. So he starts trying to bait him.
It confuses him, doesn't it? He think Khan's the first one to smile.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to try and like goad him into attacking me. And after this doesn't work, Khan starts to realize he's grieving for the death of the Deshayan Eaters of Cities, who have just died in very recent, the last few days, I guess. And Khan envies the warriors of Nuceria, which is where they were from, because they got to fight with his Primarch, and now he's here and he's killing everyone. And he's like, I want to kill things with you, not be killed by you. I'm so sad. I want to be a good boy and fight by your side. I want you to unite the Legion and make us like as good as the others. But with regards to why Angron is grieving and his backstory, Hal, what's the reason for his anger, and also who were the Eaters of Cities?
Oh, poor Angron, because he grew up basically, I guess, enslaved. He was taken as I think attacked by Eldar, then taken, then shot up with tranquilizer, taken hostage, made to become a gladiator in the pits. It's really good in his Primarch novel, which we'll get to at one day, which small scene of it where like he has to like stand on a platform in the middle of a gladiatorial ring while like acid is being pumped in, and all the people like helping each other up, and they realize there's only space for one out of 100 people. So Angron eventually kills people.
And Angron's a big boy. He's not sharing the platform.
Yeah, eventually people don't start helping each other, and he actually kills his like first people. So well, he killed Eldar pretty early on because he landed on New Syria and then was immediately attacked. Poor guy. He eventually developed like a sort of a pseudo family with the other gladiators, and these people would rise up in rebellion with Angron when Angron's master, well, Angron at one point defied the High Riders, the nobles of New Syria, and they put the butcher's nails in his head. I think we briefly mentioned them in maybe far back as the Isfahan episode, but just for a brief rundown for those who don't know what the butcher's nails are, it's a surgical implant that are like coils that go directly into the skull. They're kind of like dreadlocks on some of the Astartes like models, if you ever see them, especially on Angron. And essentially they rewire the brain to any positive feeling or anything else. Like it rewires it to only sort of quote sing when it's they experience rage and destruction and other things.
I think it's described as well as like they have like pointy ends, and that they dig deeper and deeper into your skull, and then when you kill something they relent, they go back a little bit and they give you a bit of relief. And then when you're not killing something, dig in and dig in and dig in there, he's saying ow 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 ow, and so you're like, ow, it hurts, I've got a migraine, I hate everything, I can't concentrate. And you kill someone, you go, oh, that's better.
Yeah, poor,
dig, my brain.
Poor Angron, because and lots of the other members of the Eaters, well, his family, pseudo family, they would also, some of them do get the butcher's nail. It doesn't state that all of them do have it, to be fair though, but the butcher's nail is a unique torture device on New Syria. I believe like other gladiators that get it, basically they like, I can't remember what they reference it in the Angron Primarch novel as, but essentially it's like you're just the berserker. It's the end of sentient thought, essentially.
Isn't it also like a Dark Age of technology copy? Like the High Riders inherited it as like, oh, this is something from like, we don't quite understand it completely, but we've managed to replicate it, and like this is just something we have.
Maybe it might be, because I think that, well, there's a slight spoiler, like the Legion will, obviously people know World Eaters lore, they do have butcher's nails, but the Legion at one point will try to replicate it, and they don't replicate it perfectly, but Angron's nails are a unique thing even to him. He doesn't have nails like the other Astartes ever do. His ones truly are just a torture device. I don't know if necessarily, again, this is like deep lore bits, but I think in the later novels that we'll get to, it does state like it doesn't rewire his brain as much as the other ones, because then it's like almost a relief that you're rewired and like you don't feel any like empathy or anything like that. Angron's ones are even worse because he can still feel like emotions. It's just torturing him constantly.
Yeah, and he's got a Primarch biology, so there's probably like a fair bit of resistance where like his brain is able to heal itself, but then it's dug in and it heals, and it's like you're getting like a constant back and forth between his physiology and the nails biting.
Oh yeah, the Emperor couldn't even fix it, even with his knowledge. And
yeah,
getting to the actual question thing was the Eaters of Cities, when Angron rose up in rebellion, his gladiator family became the Eaters of Cities because they would destroy the High Riders and all of their bastions, and they would literally eat cities and they would destroy them, and they were on the run until eventually they were no longer on the run. They were caught out. Angron was taken by the emperor at the moment of their last stand. He couldn't die an honorable death like he liked. He did kill a custodian when he first met the emperor, and then after that he teleported here on the Conqueror. So he is swathed in pain from the butcher's nails and the grief of losing everybody he's ever loved. So poor guy.
And there is also he does explain in this short the martial custom of the ropes, as he calls them. And whenever they were in battle and they won or lost, each member of these Eaters of Cities would make a scar on their body. And if they were, if they were victorious and they didn't fail, the scar would heal naturally. If they were to be bested or defeated, they would rub dirt into the scar before it healed, which formed either a red or a black rope. And Angron states, there's only red on me, because he's never lost. And the one time he failed and he deserves to rub dirt in the wound, he can't even go back to the soil of Nuceria to grab some dirt to rub in. And so he's ashamed that he's like, I can't even remember my failure by putting a black rope on my body for the first time ever. It's like, oh, that's a
we
shame.
should state, like, because throughout this story, it goes from him like having weird mutterings to then like bashing Khan every few minutes.
Yeah.
And we can't do it justice, but he's like properly like, I tied the rope, I killed, he's enraged, and then he's like whispering creepily.
Slap, and Khan's like,
like he's like trying to get to his knees again, and then he just gets like thrown across the room,
body slammed. Yeah. So Khan, while he's kind of trying to make sense of things, he mentions about how he once fought beside the Emperor himself on the world of 8217, fighting a sentient Xenos worm species, where the humans were being farmed on so-called cradle worlds, such as Nov Shendak. And he remembers how the Iron Warriors were present, and Perturabo was there, and he really marveled at how, because the ground was unsafe, Perturabo ordered his men to make these walls and fortifications so they could have steady ground to stand on, so they could better kill the worms using las guns and explosives. Also, he explains how...
Can I jump in for a cool point, which is when he's telling... Is anything that makes Angron in this story like sort of not rage out? Because it brings him a spark of hope when he watches Angron kind of like motion with his hands, like how he would do the battle. So he's like, oh, there is some intelligence in there, because Khan's trying to defend the Emperor at this point, being like, he's not, because Angron's like, he's just another high rider, whatever he is, and then he's like, actually no, the Emperor fights beside us, well, for now.
And he states about, I hate grenades, because that's what that's a high rider weapon. I hate grenades. And he's like thinking through the campaign in his face, and he's like, I hate fighting within walls. Reminds me of the arenas. Entrapment is death. Only cowards fight on walls. This Perturabo, he sounds like an interesting guy, but I think he's probably not a real warrior. He's probably a paper skin like everyone else, and it's like his like slur for warriors who don't get up and close and personal. Like, oh, you're a paper skin. And then basically, Khan explains how the Warhounds have always envied the Ultramarines and Iron Warriors and such, because they fought with their Primarchs so long that they're complete. And without having a Primarch for so long, there's like quite literally the last 3 legions who didn't have a Primarch. We're talking over a century, probably more, of warfare without a Primarch. And considering, Ferrus Manus was the 3rd, Lehman was the 2nd, Horus was the 1st. If we just say that Alfarius was alleged, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. This is a lie. But like, even though, like, when Guilliman came to the Ultramarines, he had an empire to back them up, and they had a renaissance, whereas the Warhounds have been stagnant. And he tells Angron about their namesake, which is they fought with the Emperor within the hive sprawls of Sethic, and they were named after the local White Hounds of Yeshik. And basically, through his explanation of prior wars they've been involved in, Angron reconsiders, these guys maybe are worthwhile. They seem to be similar to me in that they like to get into the thick of battle. They can understand the strengths of other enemies and other allies. Okay, you've shown courage in dealing with me in this state. Like, he has a moment of clarity. He goes, okay, maybe you guys are true warriors. I'll give you a chance.
Oh, it's so like I think he whisper like he beats. First of all, we should say he beats up Khan again. He's basically on the edge of death, and then he does whisper in his ear like, "You are warriors. I can see that." And then because Khan is like saying, "Oh, teach us your ways. We're ready to learn." And then
Please, Dad, please.
teach us the rope, teach us the red sands, teach us other things. And then Angron's like, maybe you're not worthless.
Yeah. And so he meets with the Legion entire. They all salute him. And Driega, he says, "Your warriors were the eaters of City Lord, but with you to command us, the Warhounds will become the eaters of worlds." And like Angron does like a bit of a chin strike and he goes, I like that name.
I think he actually, we say it, he lifts up Khan and they leave the room. I think he says like, "This room, can I leave it?" And Khan's like, yes, we can. And he's like carrying Khan. And he's like, "Salute your Primarch, salute him."
Yeah. And again, like there's a lot of their bespoke orders, like the Devourers, who are the quote bodyguards of Angron, will like eaters of worlds, Devourers. Lots of gladiatorial names from Nuceria will then be incorporated in the culture. They're going to have lots of blood sports and practice matches. They're going to start inducting people from Nuceria and the surrounding area. And bear in mind, like Nuceria is in like Ultramar, which is like a weird tidbit of like, oh, Gilliman was that close. He was right there. And it could have helped out. But like, I guess he was just like, didn't quite see Nuceria. It was just a little bit too far out of the bounds for him to care, which is a bit of a shame. And Angron gestures for his, quote, little brothers to follow him into the darkness of the hold, drenched in the blood of their former captains. And with the stench of blood in their nostrils, the world eaters are born anew. What do you think about this short story, Hal? I have the feeling you quite like it.
I liked it because it's most of the time you can get this as an audiobook, and again, hard to do it justice because the rages of Angron are so like crazy and has like a weird accent. He sounds like he's constipated, which is it adds to it in a funny way because it's like he's like that the entire time. But this is one of my favorite ones, and I have many times I've like revisited this story like randomly or this audio because it's not very long. It's a very short thing, but I revisit this one every once in a while just because it's a funny story. Every time it's like, oh, he managed to calm him down. Immediately grabs like Khan by the ankle and like throws him into the ceiling. So
yeah,
I just find it funny.
Yeah, none of these are beyond like a couple of hours long, and if you were to listen to them or read them, it would take like a couple of hours. But this one is particularly good in that it all happens more or less in one room, and it's basically all dialogue and Khan getting beaten up occasionally. And yet, even though I think it's half the length of something like a Wolf at the Door, it has so much more content in it with half the runtime, which is kind of a testament to like, again,
it's all character dialogue. I think it's all spoken, and it's not like in between bits.
And the bits about battles are told by Khan. They're not. You don't get to like see a flashback. He just explains what happens. It's like, but it's still really good and compelling because again, there's no wasted potential, I guess. And it's a really good one. Although I think it's fair to say that the next one, the last one we're going to talk about, probably steals the show for this anthology.
Notorious, I would say. Notorious as a very important piece of 40k and 30k lore.
And again, by the same token as After Deshea, it's a couple of people talking in not a room, but a building, recounting things that happened in the past. It's very, very much dialogue heavy. And it does a similar thing, but probably better in some regards. The last one we're going to talk about today is The Last Church. Now, this is set at the Church of the Lightning Stone during 730.M30. So we're a good 200 plus years before the Horus Heresy kicks off, just before the Great Crusade is about to kick into high gear. And this church is led by a man called Uriah Olifair, and he's preparing for his midnight ceremony as the Unification Wars are kind of at their peak. 7 decades ago, the Unification Wars began, and this place is the last holy site remaining on Terra because everywhere else has been burned down by the Emperor. Because the Emperor goes, religion is cringe, I'm burning down everything, and this is the last thing standing. The services have dwindled in the last few months because people are too scared to attend. But Uriah is readying for what he hopes is like one of his last ceremonies, he looks at this big and unique antique clock that he has in the church, which he, when he was a younger man as an adventurer, stole from the quote Palace of Time. And the strange thing about this clock is the craftsman who made it cursed Uriah when he was running off with it, stating it shall chime on the last days of man's doom. But that hasn't deterred him from sticking it on the wall. So it's in the church. It's quite nice looking.
He's a bit of a bit of a crazy youth, Uriah, a bit of a drinker, wasn't
wild
he? A bit
child.
of a gallivanter, rich boy's son, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a raconteur and a bit of a cheat and liar and scoundrel at times. And yet there's a knock at the door and a stranger appears who is called Unremarkable but Martial, and he calls himself Revelation. And Revelation says, "Hey, can I come in?" Says, "Okay, I'm just preparing for midnight mass." And Uriah can tell even before Revelation appears that something unique is going to happen tonight, something special. You can sense in his bones that something's going to happen.
I think
tonight.
he says something like, "No one else is coming. It's just you and I."
He basically starts like chatting to Revelation. And Revelation's like, "All right, I've just walked in. I'm in your hospitality. This is a bit cringe." He's like, "Hey, look at that. Oh, you see that fresco? Oh, the church doesn't have a monopoly on making beautiful art. I bet you, like, if the person who made that wasn't being told to make it for religious reasons, they'd make great art anyways." He's like, straight out the gate, he's like, no gods are needed to make great art. And he starts like instantly going at Uriah's faith. He's like, "Whoa, what's this?"
What? We should say we are starting this one with a disclaimer that this is not r/atheist or anything or / whatever. You know, this is more of a Uriah and the Emperor. Remember, in the Warhammer context specifically, there's a beginning debate where they argue over the merits of organized religion and then necessarily faith itself, which again, I think, is it in the fresco? It does depict, I think, an emperor-like figure slaying a dragon.
Yeah,
might be, yeah.
Which is a callback maybe to the Catan Shard, the Void Dragon, maybe. I don't know. We'll get into
Mechanicum that we explored that, didn't we? Yeah, Mechanicum episode.
But we'll get into that as this progresses, because bear in mind that we don't know who this Revelation person could be. Surely,
no idea.
So essentially, Uriah tries to like escape scrutiny. He's like, "Oh, the congregation's coming. I've got to prepare." And Revelation's like, "No one is going to attend."
Oh yeah, here it is.
Like no one's coming. And he manages to convince Uriah, like, "You might as well just stop. Let's have a drink instead." He presents a bottle of wine, which is a really old vintage that the Emperor enjoys. And he's like, "Oh, my father gave me this for my wedding night, but I never got married, so we might as well drink it now." And they have a little, they drink and philosophize. And Revelation asks Uriah, "Have you ever heard of the Emperor?" And Uriah's like, "Yeah, of course I've heard of him. He's a disgusting person. He's destroyed all the other churches. He's a tyrant. I hate him. I don't get why people venerate him. He's an idiot." And Uriah knows of him, but greatly disagrees with his disdain for superstition and faith. He states that faith is powerful, and Revelation counters, "Yes, dangerously so. We can't trust faith because faith is the root of all ills that humanity faces." And Uriah then tries to counter this by presenting him a rock. What is this rock?
Yes, well, as we mentioned earlier, this is the Holy Stone. This is obviously, when we said at the beginning of this one, it is the Church of the Lightning Stone. And supposedly, like, Uriah goes on to explain the miracle that this stone represents, which is, I think it shout out to the animation that was made a few years ago about this. Great depiction of this story, though some small elements have changed in it. But I think Uriah describes it like, "In the lee of the heavens, in a storm, a deaf and blind man was like lost, and then the lightning struck this stone. I believe he could see and hear again." Or was it he could? I don't know if he was he. I don't remember if he was deaf and blind, or if he was blind.
Yeah, he was both, I think. And because he's like, and then he saw the face of God, and then Revelation's like, "I thought he was blind." He's like, "Shut up! No, he was blind, but he saw it like in a mystical way." And Revelation's like, "Oh yeah, okay."
Yeah, he because Revelation is not convinced. I think he's like, what if it's not? I think that, what if it's what if it's psychological? What if he's not really deaf and blind because if it's like he's he lost his vision and hearing, but what if it was that way because of a psychological trauma, and then the lightning basically shocked him out of it, and then Uriah's like, no, shut up,
no, it's a miracle. Shut your face, said Uriah.
And he's like, I believe in miracles. I've seen miracles. What are you talking about? Yeah, relax. So, yeah.
But adding on to this, Revelation says, oh, well, I've been around the block. I remember hearing tales about a shrine built around other holy objects. Like there was one I heard about where they claimed there were healing waters around this particular place. So they built a shrine around it and people flocked to bathe themselves in the water and drink the water and purify their bodies. But the problem was because everyone was like doing that and they were like ill, they spread disease and contagion into the water. People started bathing in it. People started drinking it, chug-a-lugging the water. And then everyone became diseased and ill and worse off, and people died. And say
and they were making money off it.
And they were profiteering off it. And also, it exacerbated the original problems that these people had. And he's like, oh, no, but this is different. This is different. He accuses Revelation of being malicious because he doesn't have a personal experience of seeing a vision of God. And Revelation's like, yeah, that's a first-hand account that doesn't matter. Like, no, let me tell you my experience. Back in the lands of Frank, where could Frank be? I believe it's where they grow baguettes or something.
Frankish, yeah.
So they finish the first bottle. They open another bottle of wine. Uriah he gets like a different bit of glass where I was like, no, this isn't like the previous wine. You can't just slurp it. You have to let it breathe. And Revelation's like, can I drink it now? I was like, no, you can't drink it now. I was like, can I drink it now? I was like, no, you got to let it breathe. And he's like, he's like, what?
Doesn't he alludes to the fact, like he basically says, because, we got time, don't we? Because, you, Revelation, you work for the Emperor, don't you? Like, I think he calls him out.
Yeah.
So he's like, that's why no one's coming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uriah's not stupid. I think also the point, I said, like, again, for people listening, we're talking about this, like, we're just trying to do our best to sum this up in like a casual manner, but this one might be a must read / must listen.
Yeah.
If you can get your hands on it, because it's the detail in this one is amazing. But Paul, I understand the direction that Uriah is going to take now, because he's saying, Revelation is saying that, look at how faith has been weaponized so far. And then Uriah is going to make the counter argument about how, like, it can create, like, I've seen it can create beautiful things. And then he'll go on to explain how his conversion began.
And with my story, there's no caveat. It's just good. And there's no downside. Like, okay, let's see how this goes. So basically he tells his experience of when he was a younger man. He was a bit of a, like we said, a bit of a scoundrel. And back in the day, he once encountered the Emperor's Thunder Warriors at the Tali Peninsula. And he was drunk, and he started baiting them and calling them brutes and stuff. They chucked him off a cliff into the ocean, into the sea. And ever since then, he's really hated them quite fervently. And so to vent his frustrations, he went to join an army, a militia that was forming within Arrow-Roy. And this is in Frank, or France, or Franca. Hal, what happened to the governor of Frank? Something happened to them.
Yeah, because, again, like, because Uriah's, for Uriah just doesn't like the control of the Emperor. Like, he visits like most of the world. It's like, why is the flag of the Emperor all here? Like, why is he everywhere? And when there's this news of this uprising, he goes to, in the land of Frank, he goes to go check it out. And supposedly the governor of Frank, she was killed. And it happened when there was this miscreant whose name is Havelock. Oh, it's very hard to pronounce this guy's name. Havelock
de Gros.
De Gros. He supposedly was attacked. I mean, like, there's a whole thing of like, he lies and he's like, oh, I was attacked by the governor or whatever. And then, spoilers, he attacked the governor. But the governor of the Emperor's controlled region of Frank is dead. And then the Havelock story, like I said, a lie spreads faster than the truth or any other thing. And supposedly there is a building resentment for the Emperor's control over Terra. So lots of people flock to this growing rebellion of Havelak, and he's like, I'm gonna, we're gonna claim our freedom. We're gonna go fight against the Emperor. And then Uriah's in there, and like, I think he's like, people are chucking flowers, people are giving out kisses, and they're like, he says, we were all riled up. We thought we were gonna win, and would like to explain how that goes, Andy.
To be fair to de Grosse, he manages to assemble 50,000 men or so, a pretty strong militia, down the banners of the Emperor as they march to Gajuare, and within the killing fields, as they be known as the Battle of Gajuare, during 669.M30, 5,000 Thunder Warriors kind of line up against them. So they're already outnumbered 10-1. If they're
on a hill, aren't they? I think they're on a hill or a mountain.
So they're on like the high ground, but they're all disciplined. They are not moving. They are standing their ground. And so the militia starts to get rowdy and like, hey, dickhead, come fight me. And then, Thunder Warriors staying still.
Oh, I love this scene, yeah.
And then as soon as the militia charge, they're all like, we've got them. They're stupid. They're staying still. We've got them. Yeah. They slowly raise their bolters, aim, and fire a single volley, and it just obliterates the militia's like vanguard.
Oh, it's horrifying. It's like yeah.
Guy in front of you is hit by a bolt round, then his rib cage shatters, flies into the person behind him, sticks in their eyes, and it's gory, it's horrible. And it's like the first volley, their morale is instantly broken. It's like we've lost the entire front line. Probably like 5,000 people have died, injuring another 10,000 with the shrapnel from their own bodies. Oh no, this was a really bad idea. And the Thunder Warriors just another volley, bang. And then, okay, their line's broken. Havelock has died in the first volley. Like the leader of this rebellion is instantly just destroyed.
Uriah sees him get killed, from what I remember. I think, he's. And they take out their chainswords.
Yeah, they're like, hey, now the red mist is settled. Let's do this up close and personal. And they just butcher the militia. And the militia have things like, I guess, stub pistols and auto guns and simple weapons. They're not even doing more than scratching the Thunder Warriors. They're just like, dink, 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 doesn't matter. Oh no, this guy just picked up my friend with one hand, crushed his skull, and with his free hand cut a guy in half with a chainsaw like he was mowing the lawn. This is ridiculous.
Even the ones that surrender, they kill.
Yeah, even the ones who are pleading and crying. It's like, chop next. And Uriah sustains an injury to the back of his head. And while he's weeping for his family, he looks up from his kind of fetal position and he sees a golden figure. And the figure says, why do you deny me? And in his mind, this is his God. This is the avatar for his faith. And over the years, Uriah's family slowly die. He doesn't marry. He doesn't add children to his bloodline. So he's alone. But he finds new purpose in trying to give praise to this godly figure who he thinks saved him from the killing field. And Revelation states that the cruelty inflicted by religion is the root cause of his own suffering, even during that time. He cites pogroms, death camps, atrocities across Holy Terror in recent years, not our time period or before our history. It's like in current era, those things were happening. And as Uriah gets really heated at Revelation reveals himself to be the Emperor. And as he takes off his disguise, his golden light is seen by Uriah, and he realizes, oh no, this was the golden figure I've been praising all along. This is the guy I built this temple for. This is the figurehead to which everything I believe stems from, and I hate him. Uh-oh. Yeah, what a way to end his arc. And so Uriah is offered a place in the Imperium by the Emperor. And
because he likes him, doesn't he? He likes Uriah, and Uriah's an intelligent man who's learned, he's learned the lessons of life. And to be fair, Uriah does deny him, because I think his response is quite interesting in this book, where obviously kind of giving it my own interpretation of it, which is, even though Uriah's faith in something was a lie, the idea of him having faith, he turned his life around because he had faith, and he looked after people. He became a priest, and he basically led a good life. Like, he turned himself into a good person essentially after what he was, because he had faith in something. And that's the thing, that the emperor can never control that. And if the emperor tries to, like, you know, basically, the emperor will never be able to take that away from him. Even, like, he can't, you know, he can take away the root of it, but he can't deny that the faith itself was the goodness within
even
him.
though the ideals were a lie, built on a foundation of lies, they regardless did good stuff. And so it's like, well, is it worthwhile then? Even if someone believes something that's nonsense, does it mean that they're wasting their time or their lives? It's like, not necessarily. And so Uriah basically says, look, I don't have a place in your new imperium. The Thunder Warriors are outside setting fire to the church. It's falling apart. And Uriah warns the emperor that humans will always crave that which they're denied, especially with religion and superstition. And as he marches into the flames to die, the Thunder Warriors are going to grab him. And then the emperor's like, nope, let him go. So basically, Uriah marches to die in his church as it's crumbling apart and burning. And as he dies, the clock he stole from the Palace of Time, with the omen, the curse of the craftsman saying, it shall chime when humanity's doom approaches. First time in decades begins to tick, and the hour of humanity's doom has begun. Thoughts? Is good short story, I suppose. Yeah, pretty good.
It's a very foundational. Again, I would encourage people, because of the limits of, like, a podcast format, you can only, like, tackle it lightly. But people should give this one a read, because it's a good thought-provoking piece of Warhammer lore. And again, it's not, I would say, from my interpretation, the interesting, again, putting it in the very specific Warhammer context of where there actually is, like, a warp and there's chaos and other things. You know, technically you could go see Khorne and there is a god. I think it's an interesting, I think, divisive piece, because obviously depending on people's affiliation when they're reading it, but it very much, I found the difficulty, like, there's no true winner in this. Like, the emperor and Uriah in some way are both right, where the emperor says faith, you know, in the Warhammer context led to tyrants and despots able to utilize it and wield it to create death camps and horrific things. And, you know, one of the tyrants said he died with a smile on his face, knowing he killed lots of people. And then Uriah says, yeah, but then it also, you know, you talk about all the bad stuff and you ignored all the good things, where it was about my faith in, you know, whatever, basically you, essentially, is led to me to leading a good life where I took care of people. I, you know, devoted my life to a community, and I, you know, was a good person, but, you know, in the end. So it's an interesting of, like, they are in the Warhammer context, and obviously Uriah technically is right, where if you tell people you can't have it, they want it more. That's just how people probably work en masse, in a sense. Like, you know, the individual is different, but how people move in, you know, if you deny something to mankind, they crave it more, which is an interesting thing. And obviously, in the context of 40K, when the Horus Heresy is, you know, destroying people's abilities to deal with the horror that they are enduring, when they turn back to things like faith, and other characters will speak about the fact of, I think Cinderman, even, again, massive, like, spoilers and skipping ahead, but they speak about how, like, in the Siege of Terror series, if you deny people faith in hard times, they will find a way. No matter what you do, they will hide it, they will go underground. You can never, it is like trying to hide the sun. At some point, you know, the light sort of burns through the cracks, or, you know, shines through. So very different from the rest of the things in this anthology, I would say, but thought-provoking and interesting. And obviously we will see that Uriah is most likely right, in which the emperor, who would go on to have his great crusade, and, you know, all his sons beside him conquering the galaxy to build an imperium of man that denies gods exist, is not going to work out the way he thinks it will.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think, Andy, of this?
Again, like, for me as a reader, something I keep finding these days is I usually struggle with books and short stories which are a lot of dialogue heavy back and forth. I'm more of a guy who's like, I like plot, I like action, I like this happened and this happened and this happened, and I think that is reflected in how I make videos. But this is such a good back and forth dialogue kind of story, just like After Deshea, where it's even for me with my kind of blunt, I guess you could say,
anti-dialogue.
Well, no, anti-dialogue, but like I don't appreciate it as much as other people. Like I'm sure you appreciate it more. And for me, I'm like, yeah, this is really good. I like this. It's good. Because even then, it's got those nice plot beats and through lines, and it doesn't feel like there's any filler. It doesn't feel like there's any unnecessary details. Everything seems to be concise to the point. Because one of my pet peeves with Warhammer lore is when you're going for a book and the characters are just going on and on and on and on about stuff that doesn't really matter. You're like, could you get to the point? This isn't one of those books. Although it's not a book, it's a short story. But you know what I mean. So I really enjoy this too.
Yeah, I say again for people listening, some of these are, like I said, a lot of stuff with the with podcast stuff. It's more about, we hope you. If you find ones that you do like, go check them out. But if you didn't have time to, we've just kind of hopefully given you some like the cliff notes the best we can in our in our view. Because some of it is, I think, particularly we talked about the Space Wolf one earlier though. Even though that's a bit of like a hit and miss stuff, I like 13th Company lore in general, which we'll do on the next episode. So, not every, as with a series this big, not everything is a winner, but some good ones in Tales of Heresy. Not all of the anthologies have. That's the thing with anthologies, isn't it? Like there's most of them, I won't lie, is most of them is like
some of them are stinkers.
Five
like,
really five kind of bad to mid ones, and then one really good one. So lucky this one had like 2 or 3 that we consider enjoyable.
Yeah.
Other than that though, thank you very much, Andy, because that's the episode here, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We are on Spotify, of course, if people want to check us out offline, not necessarily on YouTube. We do appreciate, although on YouTube does help out the channel a lot, because we need to pay for stuff.
And there's the visual accompaniments to what we're talking about, which helps.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching, and we'll see you guys all on the next one. Peace.
Bye.